Sort of amazing moments where I'm not quite sure exactly where we're going with this conversation, but it's an important conversation to have. So I want to start off by saying, having recognized my ancestors, how many people here in this audience believe we have a water crisis? Please put your hand up. Okay. So I can safely say that you all pretty much believe we have a water crisis. Now, I know you haven't got any eggs or tomatoes that you're going to pillory me with now, because I'm going to tell you that I don't think we have a water crisis. I think you're wrong. And the reason why I think you're wrong, now we're out in the limb. Are we out in the limb here? Okay? What I'm talking about is a paradigm. All of the language I've heard, and this Mr. Smith is the one gentleman that I know that actually talks a lot of sense in this space. But the language that we are talking about is the language of scarcity. And that's wrong. That's wrong. There's something fundamentally wrong about the language of scarcity. Because, Mr. Smith, how can you grow your economy while you're constraining the users of water and you're squeezing blood out of a stone? What about the fact that the entire city budget is dependent on a rated land value? And what if I tell you that the land value here is in a bit of a bubble? What if I tell you that if you don't provide water, that bubble collapses? Suddenly your rated value goes and suddenly your business model collapses. We are speaking the language of scarcity. And that's wrong. That's wrong. And I think that's why I get excited about talking to people like you today, because I see you people as multipliers, accelerators of new ideas. So let me try and share my view with you. Paradigms matter. Paradigms are important. Have you ever wondered why we call a bicycle saddle a saddle? We call it a saddle because when bicycles were invented, people used to ride horses. And you all know that the only way to ride a horse is to sit on the back of a horse on a saddle. So when some smart guy invented a wheel and put a bicycle between the two wheels, you had to now ride this iron horse with a saddle. And clever people have tried to invent different seats for a bicycle, and they will fail because a bicycle saddle is called a saddle. Paradigms matter. And those of you that are science, engineering, technology trained will know that paradigms are not neutral items. A paradigm is an intellectual scaffold that helps us to collect ideas together to form a framework of analysis. And a paradigm helps you to define the problem and helps you to select the solution for the problem. And I would suggest that we are selecting solutions or rejecting solutions before we've even defined the problem. So let's quickly unpack this little thing now, this paradigm of scarcity. The paradigm of scarcity, in my opinion, I've done a lot of research on this stuff, goes back to the 1850s plus minus, where there was a gentleman called Brown, J.C. Brown, who came in and wrote a book. In fact, Brown wrote two books in succession, one after the other. And he wrote this book about the aridity of the Cape and the methods for the solution thereof. Long name, but it's about aridity. So Brown defined the problem as aridity. And then his second book came out with the hydrology of the Cape, etc. But it was all about scarcity. There's not enough water, scarce water. And then a gentleman called Thomas Bain, you might know Thomas Bain, famous artist, famous engineer, Bain's Kloof, many trees and plants and whatever you're named after him. Bain was an amazing naturalist, and Bain was actually an engineer for the Public Works Department. And Bain did a reconnaissance into the Northern Cape, the present-day Northern Cape, up to the Orange River. And he found this great big arid Karoo area, and there's one little settlement, one little community along the river, and these were religious people, missionaries, and they set up this mission station. And in the mission station, they'd actually started diverting water out of the Orange River, and they created this place where suddenly there was an apparent abundance. So he said, "Oh, that's a very good idea. That's a very good idea," he said. So what we need to do to manage scarcity is to start taking water out of the river. And he did the first ever, and my team, with the Water Research Commission funding, we went into the regional archives, we found his hand drawings, okay? He started overlaying onto the map, finding all the contour lines, where you can build your canals out of the Orange River, etc. So South Africa managed its water from the 1850s until day zero on the paradigm of scarcity. So the paradigm of scarcity, you see all those graphs, it's about a volume of water and time. But volume of water and time is actually a flow, not a stock. So the paradigm of scarcity has taught us to understand water as a stock. So 1.5 megaliters per day, or 2 billion whatever per day. It's a volume of water. So I'm going to suggest to you that in Victorian times, all of our engineering is now based on Victorian thinking still. And it's still based on this paradigm of scarcity, that the way we're going to solve this problem is we are going to go and trap the last drop of water in the river. We're going to squeeze the last drop out of whatever we can squeeze out. We're going to pump the groundwater dry, because we are chasing water as a stock. And that's where we're fundamentally flawed in our logic. And I'm looking at you all. Please, you're welcome to tell me I'm crazy. You're welcome to tell me that I'm wrong. You're welcome to do this. There's a famous song that says, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I've got nothing left to lose. I'm free, I'm liberated. Free at last. No one pays me a salary. I earn my own money. No one can fire me. That's the fun. So the fact of the matter is that our thinking of water as a stock makes us speak this language. It's a negative language. We're chasing investors away. We are undermining our own very, very best efforts. So I'm going to suggest to you that water is not a stock. Water is a flux. Water moves in time and space. And I'm going to suggest to you that when you cleaned your teeth this morning, the water that you drank went through a dinosaur kidney 63 million years ago. So I would suggest that every single one of you people drink recycled water every day of your life and you don't know it. But psychologically you think, oh, it's all cool and funky stuff that comes out of the clouds and it goes into a little spring somewhere, down a river, a little wetland, and it's cool and it's all feng shui stuff, okay? Went through a dinosaur's kidney. That's what it did. Okay. So if my challenge to you today as bright people that's going to accelerate these ideas, interrogate my idea, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. But if I'm right, I would like you to get enthusiastic about it and embrace it and go out and multiply it. Because another thing that I keep hearing is that, oh, we can't do other stuff, like, oh, we can't desalinate. Why not? Oh, it's too expensive. Compared to what? So we've lost how many 100,000 jobs have been lost in the agricultural sector? The property price bubble might burst, and suddenly we don't have the cash flow for the city. Too expensive compared to what? How do you compare this thing to what? Crazy stuff, okay? Absolutely, utterly crazy stuff. So I think what we need is a new paradigm, and that new paradigm of abundance. And that new paradigm of abundance must be based on the chemistry and physics of water. Can I just ask you, please get me a glass of water in your mouth? Okay. So the chemistry and physics of water are quite simple. Water moves infinitely through time and space. Can I just suck it in? Simple. Simple. Water moves in time and space. So, if we understand that, we've got to start saying to our foreign tourists, I would suggest that this city, a large portion of the city's economy is based on tourism. So how can you tell a dollar or euro-based tourist, please come here, we want you to have fun, we want you to spend your money, but please, if it's yellow, let it mellow. Okay? You can't do that. You can't do that. So what we've got to do is we've got to say, listen, come here, and we want to think about abundance. We want to think about this. The more you flush, the more we recover, the more we recycle. And I would like to suggest to you that the proxy for Cape Town is in fact the city of Perth. Perth, Western Australia, is in the same climatic zone, slightly smaller, 1.2 million people. My son happens to be an engineer there, so I go there quite often. And there's a place called the Beanie Up Wastewater Treatment Works, where they are currently recovering 120 megalitres of water a day from sewage. So 1.2 million people are generating 120 megalitres of water a day. The city can survive on 600. So the city, you've got 4 million people here. You can recover 400 megs a day from sewage. Just like that. Can be done. Can be done. I'll tell you something interesting. I've got a team of professional people. They go around. We're working with the corporate sector, and we try to tell the corporate people that actually water is a big a corporate risk, and you better understand this thing. My stopwatch is suddenly not working so well, so I don't know. I've lost track of it. So we're telling these corporates that water is actually a boardroom risk. Do you understand this? And we went, just over a year ago, we went to one of the big corporates. They happen to own hundreds and hundreds of companies, and one of the companies that they own is a laundry service. And we said the laundry crisis in Gauteng at that point in time, the drought was in Gauteng, just come out of the drought, and I suggested that this is going to become a recurring thing and they should do something about it. And I proposed that they should, in fact, start recycling the wastewater from the laundry. Think of what a laundry does. A laundry takes clothing from hospitals, takes clothing from people that work with food. Imagine if you don't wash that stuff properly, if you get cross-contamination, bacteria from one to another, pathogenic contamination, serious stuff, very serious stuff. And we put in a proposal. I said, no, our glazes are too expensive. Oh, I can't do that stuff, okay? Too expensive. I just signed a contract. Cape Town is going to have the first big laundry that's built on fully recycled water using technology that we brought in from Japan and all places. The first place in the continent of Africa that water recovery from effluent is being put in place. What happens? What could potentially happen if we put that into every single hotel? So every single hotel, where the more the people shower, the more the people flush the toilet, the more we recover, and the more we can use that water elsewhere. So I'd like to suggest to you that this new paradigm of abundance has got a new language to it. And one of the words that can I answer you later if you don't mind, otherwise I'll lose my train of thought.
Refute what you just said.
Sorry?
I can refute what you just said. We're living on a water scarcity planet. Because there's more water on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn than there is on planet Earth. And what you're doing is you're disconnecting the water debate.
Shoot me down if you want to. You're welcome to. You're welcome to shoot me down. You're welcome to shoot me down. I'm sharing an idea here with you. I'm sharing an idea. You're welcome to shoot me down. Welcome to shoot me down. Okay. Okay. I lost my train of thought. That's why I didn't go. Okay.
Laundry, water filtration.
Yeah. Okay. So the new language we speak. The new language we speak has got to be based on some fundamental assumptions. And the one assumption that we've got a crazy thing in South Africa at the moment, where our pricing structure for water is all wrong. We want best quality water, but we don't want to pay for it. So individual people pay more for water per unit of water than bulk users do. So a hotel will pay less for their water than you do. That's wrong. That's wrong because that disincentivizes the big user of water. If a big user of water has a 10% improvement, it's way more than a whole lot of, a third of society making a 10% improvement. So we've got to think the language of incentivizing technology, incentivizing the implementation of technology. And what we've got to understand is that the state has gone as far as it can in the paradigm of scarcity. And it provides 6 things. It provides an assurance of supply for 6 things. And that is a guarantee of a given volume of water, at a given price, at a given quality, at a given pressure, at a given time, at a given place. And those 6 things are now breaking down. With the best of intention, the state is no longer able to do that on a regular basis, with the best of intentions. So we've got to start thinking now firstly about the pricing structure of water, because then that enables this honest conversation about cost of water. Once we've got the cost of water sorted out, now we've got the incentive structure for your technologies to come in. But now we've got another thing that we've got to start talking about, and that is what I refer to as a dual stream reticulation economy. Right now we have an economy based on one quality of water, with those 6 assurance of supply issues, for everything. Whether you flush your toilet with it, whether you clean your industrial machinery with it, whatever, it's the same quality of water. So we've got to start thinking about water of different quality and different price for different purposes, in different time and different place in the economy. And this is entirely possible. So I'd like to suggest to you, that gentleman over there, that says that I'm propagating dangerous ideas. The fact of the matter is, 2/3 of planet Earth is covered in water. 2/3. Yeah. The fact of the matter is that we don't have a water problem. We have an ingenuity problem. We have an attitude problem. That's our problem. So we have an abundant supply of water. It's got stuff in it that we don't want to be in there. So we've got to understand that if we are stewards or custodians of water, if we respect water, this is what it comes down to. If we are respectful of that water resource, if we embrace the fact that it is an infinitely renewable resource, and if we do that with responsibility, there's an ethical component. So I'm not just talking about going out there and splashing out and going mad and having a moment of exuberance, excitement. I'm not saying that at all. We need to understand that there are finite limits to human habitation at the quality of life that we live in. But I would like to just close up by saying, because I've lost track of time here, I'd like to close up by saying that we need to have this new paradigm of abundance. And that paradigm of abundance needs to come from all levels. We're reaching out. I've got a team of people from listed companies on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We're reaching out to the new president. we want to create this whole conversation from the top down. I'm reaching out to the alderman there. Mr. Alderman, I hope we can embrace you in this conversation as well. Because ultimately you're a credible leader and people listen to what you say. So we have to have credible leaders up there, people that aren't afraid of pushing the paradigm, people that bring hope, because ultimately water is an infinitely recyclable resource. And what we need to do really is quite simple. We need to have policy certainty, and that policy certainty can attract two things. It can attract technology, and it can attract capital. We have almost an infinite supply of technology, and we have an almost infinite supply of capital. I can tell you without any fear of doubt. What we don't have is policy certainty, so those two things can't come into the space. So I'd like to just wrap up by saying that this new paradigm of abundance has to be based on understanding water as a flux, not as a stock. And it's got to be based on three legs. And the first leg, not necessarily water priority, but the first leg is the fact that we must start recovering water from waste. If we don't recover water from waste, then I'm afraid we are doomed as a species. So we have to start recovering water from waste, and the technology is abundant out there to do that. You don't have to drink sewage water. You can drink bottled water. You can drink a higher quality water, but you can flush your toilet. You can wash your car. You can irrigate your farms. You can do all kinds of stuff with recycled water. So the recovery of water from waste has to become a priority. It just has to become. The second thing is the removal of salt. Desalination of water where appropriate, and I emphasize where appropriate. I work a lot in the mining area in Mpumalanga and the goldfields, where there's massive acid mine drainage pools. Massive, just one basin in the Witwatersrand goldfields produces 120 megaliters a day of highly saline, uranium-contaminated water. So we have to desalinate that water as well. And there's a problem there, because there you can't get rid of your brine, which you can get rid of at the coast. So the coastal cities, I think, ultimately have to understand that recycling is going to be an option, or that recovery of water from the sea is an option. And the third thing is the conjunctive use of groundwater. You can't just suck the water out of the ground. Understand the groundwater as a bank overdraw facility. You can draw down when you need it in times of emergency, but you've got to pay it back. Understand that. Do that, respect it. Put water in the ground. Aquifer storage and recovery, very, very important component of our new thinking. And I think that's pretty much one of the things I wanted to say. What we'll do is
have a bit of a dialogue around this. I'd like to go to the gentleman who made the first comment, because I think the beauty of a forum like this is we can differ. And it's in our differing that we create the constructive dialogue around these issues. So I'm going to start with you, and then I'm going to go around for about 4 or 5 people to get your perspectives as well. Well, your response. Yeah.
I accept your thesis about the flux. Yes, we need to recycle, but we put a finite supply of H and O on the planet. Unfortunately, that's the. If you go back to first principles, it's basic physics. It's, the planet, you're not going to change the shape and size of the planet anytime soon. So yeah, we need to look at abundance only if we adopt systems which don't compromise the atmosphere, don't compromise the Earth.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to go to you.
Come around.
Is Jake still here? Wonderful. I was in Nairobi in 2006 when they did have a severe water flow crisis. And what they did was they, for 6 months, turned off the taps for 3 days indiscriminately and charged people more for water. And after those 6 months, or in those 6 months, they changed to what Anthony also mentioned as in their case, a triple flow system for your different grades of water. And yes, water for 6 months was scarce, or for over weekends, but from there on out, water was not a problem in Nairobi. In actual fact, water is now abundantly abundant in Nairobi, but you have various uses for water. Isn't the fact that people only listen when it all is balls to the wall, maybe an opportunity. Isn't it maybe time to just turn off the taps? Say, hey, you know what, guys? Let's pull in Nairobi for 6 months to a year and change our paradigm and our thinking about the idea of water fundamentally.
Change the context of the behavior change. Yeah. Right.
Hi, thank you very much for everything you said. I'd just like to say that maybe it's not about, or the paradigm of abundance is as dangerous as a paradigm of scarcity, and both sitting right in between is a paradigm of balance that is more sustainable. If we can now produce a paradigm of abundance, now we are in risk of going down the other side, because it's taken 200 years since the paradigm of scarcity for it to manifest its problems. So now if we go into a paradigm of abundance, maybe we're only going to see the implications of that paradigm in 200 years. Where if we look at rather a paradigm of balance, which is somewhere right in between, we'll find real solutions that are long-lasting. And I think it's the whole picture. It's not just the one thing. So it's a
polarity that you have to manage,
yes,
the tensions between.
Right in the middle.
Yeah, great, good point. Thank you very much. There we go. Let's jump in.
Hello. I'd like to say first of all that I like what you said. So Seth Siegel wrote the book Let There Be Water, and in that book he actually just looked at Israel. So I mean, Israel, from where they are, we know how it's super dry there, but a collective of people like started to come together and come up with solutions. So I've had this discussion with some people where they say that their population is less than South Africa, and it's a scarcity mindset where we literally, the attitude that we have is not towards a solution. I have a product that I'm selling, Senometi, so it's an alternative solution to gardeners, people who actually are growing food. And you find that the people who are not readily open to use my product, they're quite suffering because they still have that mentality that, there's no water, and we live close to the sea. Literally, I mean, why not desalinate? We have people, policymakers are not also looking at situations where, because we're not new, California also are in the same place, and they're spending billions of dollars on the desalination plant, which could, in the future, like impact quite a lot of things. And I think that when we have people who are really influential, who can start to look at case studies where things like this have been used. Now, Israel used scare tactics for the first 6 months to get people to start changing their state of mind and have that, first, unfortunately, because we have technology and we have quite a lot of people that still, think that water is still readily available, which I think I agree with him in some point, because it is, if we don't change the way we think about it, we really are going to be found in a place where we have nothing, and which is kind of happening with our dams. So we need to start implementing quite a lot of ways, but it has to be an open conversation between reality and what's also possible for us.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we're getting back to the balance.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Not a man. No.
Right. There's one very big resource which hasn't been spoken about yet, and that's rainfall. Even through summer, we get rainfall. I've got 2 1,000-litre tanks, which are at the moment full. Why are they full? Because all the runoff of my corrugated iron roof goes into the tank. We use about 30 litres per person per day in my household, and we also we harvest all the grey water that's used again in the toilets and so on. So and we wash about once a month, so that's okay as well.
Sounds good.
And but that's the thing, and I'm able to. I've put pebbles over my back. What was a back lawn is now pebbles, but I've still got my plants growing in pots, so I'm still able to maintain a fairly decent garden. So it's not all doom, there's ways and means. Tanks.
Right, wonderful. Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to come back to you now and just get to the stage and then
I think you touched on a very interesting point, which is about motivating change through these pricing. And I don't know how distorted the pricing structure is between business rated properties and households, but I think that is something that would attract attention and resources and innovation. So I think we should explore that.
Right, thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go to this gentleman over here, and then Alderman Smith in terms of the pricing, and then I'll come
What comes up for me is the word gratitude. So I think even if we desalinize or come up with a limitless amount of technologies and innovations to provide an abundance of water, the underlying issue is still gratitude. So if we don't have gratitude for a resource, if we provide an abundance of it, we still haven't addressed the root cause of the problem. And I say that because I've been working in a number of places. I can't mention names of large companies that use high volumes of water that are still using them, and are still, on a daily basis, what angers me deeply is the fact that no one has gratitude for the water. And even though they might have a big well or borehole that has an abundance of water, they don't understand necessarily what's going to happen if they don't have gratitude for that water. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what's the underlying problem.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm going to quickly go here and then we'll come back to you.
But so just around the rates value, remember that council's property value rates doesn't actually determine the quantum of the budget. How much money we ask from ratepayers is a value determined based on your budget. Who gets the burden of those rates is determined by property value. So that just, if you have a bubble burst and property values adjust, it's who carries the burden. The current system is designed to achieve cross-subsidization, where they have cross-subsidized, they have not. So we are burdened with an undeniably limited resource at the moment, but we don't intend to stay there. And I think the answer is a bit of balance. We are told by cities who have successfully dealt with this that the balance is 25, 25, 25, 25. 25% desalination, 25% aquifer borehole, 25% reuse, and 25 diesel. So we will be doing desalination. It's one way to have a backup in case we get around to this scenario again. We don't know if it's going to rain in June. Climatologists tell us most likely, but there's no guarantees. We can have late rains in July or August, and we can have very little rain, and then we'll be in a very serious situation next year. Then we will have day zero next year. And we must tell you that we already make extensive use of treated effluent. A lot of stuff is already being watered, and we make extensive use of treated effluent, including for firefighting even now, for bushfires. So treated effluent is already a big deal, and I think you can tell tourists to save. It's a form of adventure tourism, visit but save like a local. And we've seen that many are. There's a willingness from a tourist when they come to adopt the rules of where they are. They're willing to go native quite quickly, and they're willing to save water, to be frugal with it. The hotels, I think, are arguably the industry that have done most to come, because the tourists have more of an environmental consciousness and take offense more quickly if they see wastage. So I think they've done probably the most innovative things. I can tell you that the cluster of big hotels down in the foreshore, the Western, that group, they are collectively arranging their own desal plant. So they are taking the situation into their hand, and perhaps more can. I'm sure there are companies who are still wasting. But on the issue of pricing, I said to you earlier, it takes about, costs us just over R4 to produce a kiloliter of water to deliver it. Think of how insane it is that you will pay 10 Rand for a little bottle of Coke, or a 500 milliliter bottle of Coke. But you balk at the idea of paying 10 Rand, you pay 9 Rand to have 10,000 liters of treated water delivered to your home. So maybe the argument is correct, water should be free. You can say water should be free. The truth is there's a cost to it, and the cost is either going to be borne by the user or somewhere else in the council budget. It doesn't go away. There's still a cost to produce it, collect it, and distribute it. And the current rates, the current 6B punitive tariffs, is meant to dissuade people from using excessive amounts. It's a very steep tariff. It's an extremely steep tariff. I'm balking at it at my home. So, but it is definitely driving down consumption. And of course, with driving down consumption, there goes the revenue as well that's dependent on the consumption before, which means we have to gather that revenue elsewhere. And all of the other departments are taking hits. So what does a hit look like? That means my recreation and parks budget, repair and maintenance budget is reduced by half. So instead of 120 million Rand for the fixing of walls, I've got 60 million Rand. So everything takes a hit. There's a finite budget. You can't push up rates indefinitely. And so water pricing is absolutely essential, as is electricity pricing. Those commodities are very, very critical for how a city runs. And the percentage of water users, I can leave the graph for you when I leave, but I mean 55% of our water is consumed by low-density residential users. Another 10% by high-density users, people in flats. Government users just on 9 point something %, and then industry and commerce uses about 20%. Agricultural, urban agriculture also uses a percentage. I can leave you the graph. But your biggest users are your collective, your residential component, and especially low density residential. They use the bulk of that. We have explored water shedding, but the problem with water shedding, because I fought furiously for water shedding when I discovered how miserable the plots are going to be. Even if we get the water rationing to run like a well-oiled machine, if it runs with military precision, it will still be enormously disruptive and painful. It will have massive social and economic impact. So we explored every option of avoiding it. And I pushed hard for water shedding. The problem with water shedding is that the very resource you're trying to save, you invariably squander, because as soon as you start shedding, the leaks, what they call sweep leaks that incur in the various valves that you turn on and off, and the pressure increased when you turn the water back on, drives that leakage level, your water leaks percentage up. Now, Cape Town has the lowest level of leaks in South Africa. It's because we've got a high level of repairs and maintenance budget. Other cities have spent that money on other stuff, but they will ultimately pay the price. If you start shedding, you will drive those leaks up to 20-30%. You will waste a lot of the water you're seeking to avoid. So I would suggest water shedding sounds good in principle, but is actually a serious problem. And never waste a good crisis. This crisis is a great opportunity to get us to change the way.
Wonderful. Crisis opportunity. We're going to go this lady and then through to this.
Hi, I'm sorry, I've never really seen this program for the day and tomorrow, so excuse me if I'm going to double up on somebody else's presentation. But I'd just like to say I really want to appreciate Lisa and you coming up here this morning and doing a ceremony for acknowledging the sacredness of where we're standing. But my deep feeling here on one level is that we acknowledge water as a living being. I don't know how many of us get that, but we're talking about using. We're talking about using water, but the acknowledgement that this is actually an entity, a being, a living presence on our planet, not something that we are just there to take and use, is something that I think we all need to do a dialogue about. Water is removed itself from our presence because we no longer acknowledge it as a participant, a player in this life that we live on this planet. And I'm really happy to open a dialogue with anyone who wants to come and talk to me about that in space, and how we can acknowledge water. And I call on the presence of water to this meeting this weekend. I ask that the being of water come here and acknowledge that we are all here trying to find solutions, trying to find a way to get into a cooperative way of living. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, JP. Thank you. I'm quite sure that you have sleepless nights. Thank you for the hard work that you are doing and all the information that you've been sharing with us. And it's solution driven, so thank you for that. I just want to ask you, is there a possibility of subsidies for grey water tanks and the installation of that in the urban environment?
So I'm not from the water department. I can't definitively say to you, but I don't see why not. I don't see why we cannot incentivize this. We do so with the electricity, with encouraging people to put on solar and solar geysers and solar cells, and we had a subsidy scheme for that. It is one of the things that we're looking at because the reuse category is 25% of the overall strategy. But I'm going to try and make sure that you have somebody from the water department here later this afternoon and tomorrow, and then please do repose those questions around subsidies and incentivization to them.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Alderman, I know that you have to leave. Thank you very much for your contribution. Much appreciated.